Do you know what Jimi Hendrix, Buzz Aldrin, Kanye West, and Robert Downey Jr. have in common with Abraham Lincoln, Agatha Christie, and Beethoven? These people, despite living vastly different lives, share a common thread. They all grapple with mental health challenges, particularly bipolar disorder. This ancient ailment, once called manic depression, has affected countless individuals throughout history. From mild mood swings to severe recurring episodes, bipolar disorder impacts an estimated 90 million American citizens today. But its roots stretch back thousands of years. In this episode of Nutty History, we'll delve into the fascinating history of bipolar disorder, tracing its origins and exploring how it has been understood and treated over time. 2,500 years ago. Even though a group of our current society believes that a majority of mental disorders are a modern phenomenon, the symptoms and effects of bipolar disorder were recognized almost 2,500 years ago by the father of medicine, Hippocrates. He recognized melancholia and mania being two extreme states of human behavior. He correlated their existence and occurrence to the imbalance in the four humors. Melancholia was considered to be caused by the excess of too much black bile, melas in Greek meaning black, and chole meaning bile. Mania, or a state of hyperenergy and happiness, was perceived as a result of excessive growth of yellow humor in the body. Some 500 years later, Aretias of Cappadocia proposed that this tendency of extreme mood swings was related to the chemical process of humor in the brain. His studies were based on reading the accounts of a very famous lineage of teachers and students. Often, bipolar disorder is considered an affliction of the genius. Plato, a student of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle, a Greek philosopher and mathematician, founder of the Academy in Athens and father of Western philosophy and science, most likely suffered from bipolar disorder. Despite his travels, political involvement in Syracuse, and success as a wrestler in the Isthmian Games, Plato was a reserved individual who seldom spoke. However, when it came to wrestling, he displayed a fierce and aggressive style. During discussions, he would often fall silent and appear deeply absorbed in thought. Many modern experts have speculated that his bipolar disorder may have stemmed from lacking a father figure growing up. In his philosophical debates, Plato pondered the impact a father's interest could have on the future success of his son. This topic was one that Plato held dear, as evidenced by his passionate speeches on the subject. Plato's mental health suffered when his politician friend and disciple in Syracuse betrayed him, selling him into slavery. However, his intelligence and virtue eventually won his freedom back as he impressed his master. Despite regaining his freedom, the trauma of incarceration left lasting damage. Plato was well aware of his condition and suggested two types of bipolar disorders, one stemming from a physical cause and the other from divine inspiration. Today, experts recognize four distinct types of BPD. Plato and his teacher Socrates truly believed that the affliction of manic melancholy was a side effect of Apollo's blessing of creativity, artistic impulses, and productivity. Another philosopher, Democritus, also questioned Hippocrates regarding why philosophers, politicians, and artists are often melancholic and prone to extreme mood swings, something that puzzles us today. Hot delusions of a mad king. On a hot summer day in August of 1392, a company of French knights was on a mission to Brittany with the royal army near Le Mans when something inexplicable happened. The military camp in the forest was filled with shrieks and shouts of horror as 5 knights met their end. It wasn't an enemy ambush. The bloody sword that was responsible for the rather early end of these poor knights was in the hands of none other than their own king. A few minutes earlier, a page boy had dropped a lance with a loud clang that triggered something in the 23-year-old French king Charles VI. In his uncontrollable frenzy, he began blindly swishing and swashing his sword around until someone finally managed to pull the Gallic king from his horse and restrain him. Charles's first psychotic episode had done some irrevocable damage and earned him the title Charles the Mad. A 2018 study by a team of French psychiatrists made the case that Charles VI was probably suffering from bipolar disorders apart from other neurological ailments. They based their conclusion on the records of the king having reoccurrences of manic depressive episodes of varying severity. Sadly, the man would fail to recognize his own wife and kids. His grand total of 56 recorded episodes were interspersed with asymptomatic periods, which is a strong symptom of BPD. But Charles' struggles with mental disorders doesn't end there. He was also afflicted by one of the most intriguing mental disorders recorded in the history of psychiatry. The glass delusion was an external manifestation of a psychiatric disorder that was observed in the late Middle Ages to the last century. People like Charles VI of France, Princess Alexandra of Bavaria, and Russian composer Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky believed that they were made of glass, or they had glass in them which would shatter into pieces on a hard impact or injury. Before Pius II became pope, he wrote in his observation of the French king, Charles VI's malady grew worse every day until his mind was completely gone. Sometimes he thought he was made of glass and would not let himself be touched. He had iron rods put into his clothing and protected himself in all sorts of ways so that he might not fall and break. Although there were a limited number of cases where people believed themselves to have body parts made of glass, similar cases go as far back as the 2nd century CE, where people believed themselves to be made of earthenware. Dutch Golden Age poet and theologian Caspar Barlaeus, who lived at the same time as Charles VI, sometimes believed that he was made of straw and a few times claimed to be made of butter, as well as a few times claiming to be made of glass. Is it possible they were experimenting with shrooms, or dimethyltryptamine, or maybe even licking the poisonous amphibian's back? I mean, who knows? Psychiatrists who studied Charles VI's records have theorized that the glass delusion was perhaps a byproduct of BPD, as the melancholy may have made victims push people away and avoid contact, thus their brains coming up with irrational explanations for such behavior to create an effective physical barrier. Soren's struggle with self. Soren Kierkegaard was a renowned existential philosopher who practically established existentialism as a school of philosophy, along with Buber, Rosenzweig, Berdyaev, Marcel, and Tillich. Even though Kierkegaard deemed himself a missionary to Christianity, ironically, his emphasis on critique of the religion didn't earn him a lot of friends. Still, he earned a lot of recognition for his academic achievements in history, Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. Unlike most cases of BPD, Kierkegaard admitted to having a happy time as an adolescent, but he did admit to being affected by his father's deep mournfulness and religiosity, and he described his father as the most melancholic man he had ever met. Kierkegaard later admitted that his father's depression had caused him anxiety. He also faced numerous unfortunate events during his school years. As a young man, he employed his wit and intelligent humor as a defense against the irritating behavior of others, a tactic that persisted into adulthood when dealing with critics like Chandler Bing. Despite being a genius and recognized as a prodigy by his father and elder brother, Kierkegaard found it extremely hard to build a good relationship with either of them. This alienation further pushed him towards a pendulum-like shift between maniacal exaltations and severe depression, which was BPD. Kierkegaard's conceptualization of dread or angst provides an insight into his life and mindset that gave birth to existentialism. One almost never sees the concept of dread dealt with in psychology, and I must therefore call attention to the fact that it is different from fear and similar concepts, which refer to something definite, whereas dread is freedom's reality as possibility for possibility. Kierkegaard's cynicism grew as he got older and he became more and more critical of the Lutheran state church. He openly challenged church politics and rituals and disapproved of the notion of how the church prefers to curb individuality and treats the followers of the religion like children. He was also not fond of how intertwined the state and the religion were, and he accused the church of straying away from the true doctrine of Christianity. Despite his failing health due to health complications he had from a younger age, Kierkegaard encouraged people to seek their own idea of Christianity instead of blindly following others. He believed that despite living a life of immense suffering, he lived a life of dignity which may seem like vanity to others. Behind a veil of laughter. Robin Williams' exceptional charisma and unparalleled talent for turning any situation into a burst of laughter set him apart as an artist, comedian, and celebrity. Known for his unforgettable roles as Mork, Jeannie, and Mrs. Doubtfire, it is unfortunate that a great deal of pain and suffering lay hidden behind his iconic performances.
It's latent, waits. It lays in wait, and for the time when you think, it's fine now, I'm okay, and then beep, and then the next thing you know, it's not okay. It's not going so well.
While it is common knowledge that the late Robin Williams battled depression throughout his life, some have speculated that he may have also suffered from BPD. This could have contributed to his energetic and enthusiastic performances. Interestingly, Robin Williams admitted that while people typically use substances to become hyper, they had the opposite effect on him. This suggests that he was likely intensely energetic in his younger years. He was infamous for being a nuisance on the set of Mork and Mindy, ironically making work difficult with his constant jokes and pranks. The untimely death of John Belushi and the birth of his eldest son Zach led Robin to quit addictive substances abruptly. However, this did not mark the end of his struggles. A lonely childhood played a significant role in the development of complications in Robin Williams' mental health. Throughout history, a number of notable figures have been speculated to have suffered from BPD, including Virginia Woolf, Ernest Hemingway, and Vincent van Gogh. These individuals, like Robin Williams, demonstrated remarkable resilience in the face of mental health challenges, and their work has left an indelible mark on history. Thanks for watching Nutty History. We would appreciate it if you would like and share the video with those who might be interested in the history of mental health wellness. Also, click the subscribe button and the bell to watch more videos about nutty stories of human history.